Hello everybody, welcome back as ever to Building Blocks, where we program Minecraft mods live on camera and watch as things go boom. Just quickly joined by Rowlet here because I have a request from last stream actually that I barely forgot about to hug a plushie. So Rowlet is here and also here to keep an eye out for the bugs that we're going to be fighting today, because we have a number and I'm going to talk you through exactly what the ones I've gone through so far, just so you know, can find out the kind of things that happen when I'm sorting bugs, essentially. Just hang out over there for me. Thank you. Alright. So let's start with the one that crashed the Cumblock home server. Which is right here in the faction command. I ran this on stream about 90 minutes into a live stream and I crashed the entire server. Formerly, there were two functions here. We had faction to info, which basically just prints out a name of a faction along with a embedded link to run a command to see about info on it. There was another one which had the exact same name, but took a faction object and just passed it through to this one with the name of the faction. But because I had forgotten to change what the input was, it was just calling itself over and over and over and over, creating an infinite loop and crashing the server. I could have solved that with literally 5 letters at the end of an input name. That's how easy it can be sometimes to make a server crashing bug. So, whee! So, that was the first one I fixed in the past week or so. The next one, I believe, was reported by Dusty in the chat, which was that every time you died, if you had the config set up to open up the species window when you first log in, you would have to select species again. So that is just because here is where the data gets well, it's called cloned, basically just gets replicated. Whenever you die, this gets called, and it's used to create full persistent data, because living data, it gets reapplied when you're dead and revive, because you're technically a separate entity. So we do that. Now we just have set selected species. We also have templates added in here. They weren't before, so if I died during testing of templates, I would have noticed that my template suddenly vanished. That sort of thing. In abilities, we have this handy function, which just returns the generic validity of whether or not you can use a bonus jump, either a boost when you're flying because you have the flight ability, or a boost when you're swimming because you have the swim ability. I can't replicate how, what happened before I added this function, but people on my Patreon server are 100% aware of what happens before this function exists, because it explicitly prevents you from using the bonus jump effects when you are sleeping or riding an entity. It was an interesting experience to witness that particular bug. There's another one where an undead creature riding a mob causes that mob to endlessly float upwards, but I'm still not sure what causes that. I'm not even sure if that's my code. So, don't know. Here we have Firework Explosions. There was a bug reported to me, that when a firework exploded, the game crashed. And Firework Explosion event here is applied via mix-in whenever a firework explodes, and allows us to actually retrieve whatever data is inside of that particular firework explosion, so we can have different things happen when different kinds of firework go off. So signal flares, for instance. But currently, it is used exclusively by wargs, because they get spooked when fireworks go off. Poor things. And this input here can be null, which meant that we stored a null value into MPT, and then when the wargs tried to, get the firework data, it would try to copy a null value and then crash. So now it always has at least an empty MPT compound tag. So thankfully that should keep that from ever happening again. The reason it copies here, by the way, is so that you can't change what's actually in the event. You can only access what it was when it started, and that prevents different effects from theoretically changing what data other events are working on with regards to the firework explosion. I guess theoretically, if I didn't do that, you could make a mob be colorblind or something, but there's much easier ways to do it than that, surely. Ooh, here's a very common one we've had recently. A bunch of people have had their games crash completely at random. And that is for whatever reason, every so often, whenever this particular piece of rendering tries to kick in to display the birds hovering around somebody's head because they're dazed, it somehow encounters a null. I'm not 100% certain as yet how, but every now and then it encounters a null. So we just have to check for whether data is null, and Get Visual Potion has a check for nulls as well. So pretty much everything should be able quite happily to find a value here, and that bug should be fixed, but it's not one I've been able to replicate, so I'm not 100% certain. Here's a more odd one that also happens completely at random, but also is explained and yet completely impossible. So a bunch of people use blind sights. I know at least one person has been trying to do like a hardcore run using the ooze type, which is blind by default but has blind sight. And for whatever reason, every now and then they were getting a complete game crashing bug from the is glowing function, which is a necessary part of blind sight so that you can actually see anything, because glowing creatures bypass blindness. Here's the thing. What was happening was the blind sight value retrieved here was null. There was nothing there. We could only get to that point being null if this returns true, which it only can if the blind sight ability exists in the entity. So I don't know if I even necessarily have a clear analogy for this, but suffice to say, if this is null, then this must return false, so we can never get to this and have a null pointer problem. So, but this was true in order to get there and have the bug there, so it could be false, but if that's false, then this can only be false. It's completely impossible. They reference the exact same thing. I'm really not sure how exactly that it managed to do that, but somehow it did. So I've just added a quick check, therefore. Is the ability that we've just retrieved, despite the fact that we're very certain that ability exists in the cache, null, then don't worry about it. just ignore it for this particular run. And as near as my testing has managed to confirm, that works. Again, that should be completely impossible, because we're not even talking like a tick difference here. It's literally 2 lines of code. Like, in the exact same... It should run in the exact same tick, but somehow, I really don't know how that's possible. But I also did it for Tremor Sense, which does the same thing, but under different contexts. Tremor Sense, if you're not familiar, makes you able to see things that are in contact with the ground. So you can't see flying entities, and I think you can see swimming entities, I'm not 100%. But you can't see, like, you can see that through walls. Blind sight, you can't see through walls. Just sort of like 2 different ways of seeing, I guess. Theoretically, blind sight's the more useful one if you're trying to play a blind run, but... And here's one of the ones that we need to figure out today. So this line of code here is appended to every instance of nearest attackable targets, which is how most things attack players and other things. And what it's meant to do, as the thing says above it, is that if the target creature that it's checking is undead, which it can be via our type system, and the owner of the nearest... Oh,
Happy Tuesday lying.
oh, thank you for that, Soul. Much appreciated. If there's one thing you know about Minecraft by now, it's that if something should be impossible, it's rather guaranteed 100%. Fair. You're not wrong. Yeah, if the target is undead, and the owner of this particular AI task is undead, and also not a boss creature, it should ignore that particular creature, meaning that two undead creatures generally do not attack one another. What I have managed to identify, however, is that for whatever reason, these two lines of code prevent undead from being targeted by literally everything. Just about. So, we have at least one undead player on my patron server, Kyofushin, who plays as a Fey Undead, which is technically impossible, but that's not something we prevent in the type system explicitly, just so you can play however you like. And we found out that if you were Fey, which is what I'm on, which is what I am on the patron server, then a testing witch, as it were, would attack you. But if you were undead, didn't care. Witches aren't undead, so they shouldn't have been affected by this. Hence the bizarre, strangeness to it. So, I'm tempted to just remove this, at least for the time being. Because there should be cases where, I guess, undead attack each other, but for the most part, zombies don't attack other zombies and the like. So, I don't know. I really don't know what's causing that. It's very strange indeed. Yep. Soul requesting a never hug, I see. Right. Okay. Can you see how that's happening? Hmm? Any chance at all? No? Okay. Thank you for your service. I think if we, at the very least, if goal owner in dot is not boss, and goal owner in dot is undead. The reason that we specify non-boss is so that we don't enter into a situation where the Wither doesn't attack things. Evidently that didn't work anyways, but, you know. Just, you know, we try. Okay. Let's boot up and see if that still happens, in short. Now, I should stress that this particular bit of mix-in doesn't prevent undead from attacking you all the time. There are a number of different cases outside of nearest attackable target where you can still become an attack target for an undead. A lot of things will just, have different targeting events, and the most obvious one that can also make you a target for an undead creature is just retaliation. Hurt by entity is, a second targeting AI task that can mean that you can still be attacked. Where's my testing rule? Is it this one? Might as well. Well, whatever, we just need to be undead, and we need undead. How was everyone today, by the way? Having a good week so far? I hear tell it's very warm. I'm not even sure what potion effect you apparently have. Why do both of you have some kind of potion effect? This is interesting. Night vision based on the color. I mean, I guess maybe, but... We've encountered a very interesting bug. Hang on. Let's see. Data gets entity Oh! Sorry, I just clapped directly into the microphone. It's night vision. It's their dark vision ability that they recently got. Okay, I definitely need to fix that then. Okay, yeah. Well, I recently implemented dark vision, otherwise known as the capacity to see in the dark. How do you have that effect then? Humanoid goblin. You shouldn't have dark vision then. Hang on. Oh, you're a monstrous humanoid. Oh, did I? I must have changed your creature types specifically. Yeah, good guess, Sweden. Okay, hang on. If I summon a different villager, do you also have? No. Okay. So there's evidently a problem with the status effects that's making it have particles, because it shouldn't, in short. Yeah, it's just you. Okay, well, we found a bug already. It's not even the bug I was looking for. Let's see. Show particles in. Yep, that's my fault. Right there. So, yeah. Ambient, no. Show particles, no. That should make it no longer do that. Because playing with potion particles is already something that makes people, like, annoyed, to the point of installing resource packs to make potion particles less obtrusive and such. Imagine if it was literally impossible to escape them. Now I should stress that's not really how I want to do dark vision. Dark vision is significantly different to how night vision in Minecraft works, and I would prefer that it worked in the way that it's supposed to work, but the way that dark vision works inside D&D is that you can see perfectly fine in pitch blackness, but your vision is completely your vision is black and white. Now, unfortunately, there is no way for me to even so much as conditionally alter the light levels that you can see. So, for instance, low light vision doubles how far you can see, which would be effectively changing the range, like the brightness of a torch to 30, and just having that decay over. But I can't do that because Minecraft's lighting engine is virtually non-existent.
I think I just gave you some cash. Please tell me if that's not the case.
I define, like, by that? By that, sure. Okay, there we go. Weird goblins. Also, has Karen's voice changed? That sounds different to Karen. Okay. Yeah, in order to actually implement low light vision and dark vision the way I would want to implement them, I would need to rebuild Minecraft's lighting engine from the ground up, basically. So that means for the time being we have dark vision in a fashion, and that's it. You can set fog distance in Minecraft, use that in combination with night vision. Not really, unfortunately. That would also, strictly speaking, make dark vision a downgrade. Because you would have a constant level of fog that you would have no capacity to see the horizon, in short. Should have given you enough money for 3 months of subscription. Yes you have. I can see that. Has subscribed for 3 months. Thank you very much. Or at the very least it's saying for 3 months. I don't know if you would subscribe before. Anyways. I require a testing witch. If that's not the case, let me know for more cash. You're too kind. Seriously. I have a similar problem. Lang, I know you like to accidentally become too ambitious with stuff, but please do not rewrite the entire lighting engine. Monkey patch night vision to make it work that way. Gotta fill in this hole. This is left over from when we were testing the explode ability. Because, yes, we have an ability to be a creeper, in short. Modify you silent set value 0B. Wait, no, 1B. There. Just so I'm not listening to that this whole time. Oh Christ, yes, I just remember. Speaking of goblins and noises, if anybody was watching my Cumblock home stream yesterday, we have a goblin in the base called a Gooper. Goblins have an internal timer that is hastened if they are near death, essentially. But it ticks down naturally anyways, and eventually it hits 0, and they go into a mating state. I forgot that there's no exit state to that except breeding. So Gooper got really, really, really horny and stayed that way the entire stream. So that's another bug. Just okay. We have a witch. Types list. Target me. I'm currently Fae, so if I go into survival, the witch should attack me. Yep. Okay. Good start. Good start. Good thing it was after the watershed. Yeah. Okay. Types. Then try to kill you as you want. Yeah, because you've evidently accrued. The player data on the CBH server is legacy from way back, so Dave probably has pretty bad goblin rep. I couldn't check it with the command because it will still crash the server, but okay, types. Yarn, send.
Also, please no ban for swearing 3.
I mean, you probably won't be banned, but the cowbot might sit on you. Just as a note. So be careful. But thank you very much for that. Okay, sets target dev to undead. Oh, she has literally just despawned. Well, that's very helpful of you, witch. Thank you very much for that. Okay, fine. Summon witch. There. Persistence required. Silent. There. Summoned new witch. Okay, so we are now defined as undead, which should make no difference to the witch because she shouldn't be undead. Let's check, just to be sure. Yeah, she is just humanoid. So, consequently, she shouldn't be affected by the code that says non-boss undead, don't detect non-boss undead. Called me an Oedipus, but I figured one suddenly should be relative. Right? Wait, hang on, Oedipus? That's it. I'm very confused now, but okay. So we're undead, she's not, shouldn't be a complication. She should still attack us. Good. Good. Okay, that's good to see. She's notably still using poison, because witches will not use instant damage potions against undead, which is nice. Okay, let's just back off here. So, the next test is to have a husk and see if that husk will attack us, because we're undead, so they shouldn't, unlike that witch. So, let's see, summon husk. There. Yeah, good. Yeah. Okay, but if we set to something other than undead, let's say Fae again. Now you care. Okay. That looks correct. Oh. Oh, I see. Also, little surprised that that didn't get caught by Moobot. Huh. Interesting. Slightly glad that the chat isn't like on. Slightly glad that the chat isn't involved. Okay. So we verified that. The slight problem is I'm fairly certain that's how it was working before, so I'm not 100% certain if we fixed that particular bug. But yes, please, no swearing in my chat, please. I have a lot of babbies. Regardless of how my stream is rated, I have a lot of babbies, and I also just prefer not to have swears in my chat. Also, not allowing swearing in my 18 rated streams reduces the number of trolls I get. Unless it is oaths to the Undying Lich region? Still no. Also, that's profanity, not like... Oh, is that heresy? I guess it is profane, but it's a different kind of profanity, I think. Get back to you on that one. But okay. So, as near as we can tell, that bug's fixed. Doesn't occur here. We'll boot up the server and see if it's if it behaves any differently there. Because obviously we found this on the patron server, so it might be that it doesn't do that in single player, but does do it in multiplayer. Best to find out. Okay. Spawn area up. Yep. Server's doing okay. Grand and good. So very simply, essentially, we'll just pop on and do the exact same thing again. Glad we identified that dark vision bug. Okay. Types. Sets. Target. Dev 2. Undead. Game mode. Survival. Summon Husk. Hi. Yes, it is very sunny. It's probably warm, personally. Okay. Next question. Summon which? A living mob that should not be affected by this. Are you gonna... Yes, you are. Okay, grand. That appears to function. That appears to work just fine. Hooray! So best we can tell, we fixed that bug. So I think that one's done. I will mark that off. If you're curious, I've been keeping this list inside of the Modding in Bedmon channel to help, just as like a decent sign. There's obviously quite a few here. Okay. So the one that might take the most amount of time to fix is this one. Tile entity rendering to blind. Because right now, if we become blind, we can't see pretty much any tile entities. We still see the like box outline of them, but we don't render them. Now that's not true of all tile entities. You can still see brewing stands, for instance. You can still see furnaces. It's very dependent upon how their exact rendering works. But you can't see chests and you can't see beds, which is kind of an important thing. So we want to get that fixed up. And That, I believe, is handled by the Obus client. Yeah, blind renders. Right there. Oh yes, this, clearing settlements. Occasionally you would see settlements, the boundaries of settlements being rendered in other worlds if you changed worlds. I don't know if that's still going on. It's relatively low priority because those boundaries only render if you're in creative mode anyways. But anyways. So the way that the blind ability works is that we keep track of every block that you either mouse over with your cursor or are standing on for a duration of 15 seconds. Once that is done, it gets dropped from this map and we stop rendering it. But whilst it's in there, we basically just tack on all of this rendering to actually redo. Essentially, we are creating a secondary world rendering phase. It's not comprehensive and it's not perfect. Namely, if you are wandering around, occasionally blocks will like be transparent to another one. Like they'll be behind, but they'll be rendered in front. That kind of thing. You can tell when it happens. It's weird to look at. And also, as you're wandering around, blocks will bounce if you have view bobbing on and such. Personally, I'm kind of okay with most of these bugs. It kind of gives you the sensation that this is not exactly something you're seeing so much as something you are trying to remember actively. But, yeah. But, here is where we render the blocks. And graphics code is not my forte, to say the least. I am terrible at graphics coding. If you're new to the stream, in university, when I was studying computing and included like how to render stuff in game engines and such, that particular section of my degree almost got me kicked out of university, or at least almost cost me my entire degree. That's how bad I am at it. Arguably, I'm still paying for that, because if I'd done better there, my degree would be worth more. Or it would have been, like, 5+ years ago. So somewhere in here, we need to add a check for... Is there a tile entity? And do we need to render from that tile entity, as well as to retrieve the actual renderer of that tile entity? So let's just check render type. Love my headset? Why, thank you. If I'm on chat with people, then you can actually see the lights pulsing here, because these serve as an audio, like, level monitor. That kind of thing. So, let's see. Solid cutout, translucent, leash, watermark, glint. There's nothing here that says render with just the renderer. So, can we just retrieve a tile entity renderer and use that? Let's see. Furnace tile entity. Let's see if that's referenced anywhere. Like right now it is showing levels from like the songs that Pretzel's playing. Okay, there is a call to tile entity in Forge Hooks. There is not something related to rendering. Conversely, chest tile entity renderer right there. So we need to somehow... I'm guessing every tile entity that has a renderer is registered somewhere. And from there, we need to then retrieve it, and if it's not null, call it to render at the specific location. Right in here. Now, if you're particularly savvy, you can actually combine models and tile entities. So, for instance, entities in Minecraft, well, item frames in Minecraft are an entity and they render differently, but for purposes of this particular explanation, the item frame could be a model. In fact, in Minecraft, item frames are a model. They're just rendered as part of the entity. It's weird that way. And then use a tile entity renderer to render the item inside of the item frame. That happens a fair bit, actually. Okay, so state tile entity. Can we check? Has tile entity. Okay. If state.has tile entity, then let's see. Tile entity tile equals. That would be the world. Get the tile entity at the given position. Okay, so that'll tell us if there's a tile entity. So the next question is, where do we retrieve the renderer from? Tile entity renderer dispatcher. Okay. Tile entity in get renderer. Okay. What's your problem? Oh, yeah. Okay. That's fine. If tile renderer does not equal null, as it presumably can coming out of this, renderers gets that dot get type. Wait, get the type? Oh, of course. Yeah, that makes a degree of sense now. Since that's a map... Yes, since it's a map, the default value from get should just be null, so it can be null. Okay. So, let's just give ourselves a sys out here. Found tile entity to render. There we go. Let's see, can I get a name? There we are. And let's just get the path, because probably knows that will be the same thing anyways. Okay. And now, to test this, we need to blind ourselves. This test is just to see if we can identify that we need to render something like a chest. Talking about things getting bypassed, getting around Moobot, apparently. I was actually on Twitter earlier today saying there's, like, if you didn't know, there's been a big push on Twitch, this platform. Which is perfect and wonderful, and I clearly could not speak, or ever would speak, any ill of, because I value my channel. But there's been a big push on Twitch to, for lack of a better term, ban sexy content. There's no other way for me to describe it. That's all it seems to be about. So they like had big issues with like eating streams, and they've had big issues with hot tub streams. They've now actually just added an entire thing for that. They then also had like problems with ASMR streams, and they've had trouble with, and I wish I was joking when I said this one, farting streams. I'm not into that. I don't know about that, like, at all. I'm also not into that, but I digress. So they keep trying to make these rules that sort of curtail what you can and can't do, and it struck me as this is the exact same thing when I'm trying to make sure Moobot knows who to time out for saying a naughty word. There's no rule that you can write that somebody on the internet with something to gain, whether that be the capacity to make a rude word in chat or not, or whatnot, or yell a slur, that kind of thing, will not find a way around. So it's like, the only way I could, like, I think the way I put it on Twitter was, if you banned face cams, like, if you weren't allowed to show your face on, like, camera at all, if you weren't allowed to show anything from, like, the waist up or whatnot, you'd still just get a whole ton of foot streams. And it's like, there's almost nothing you can really do, because people are gonna find ways around it. Like, if you try to make a process, people will just find the rules that are written into the process and go around them. If you have a human somehow evaluate every stream at all times on Twitch, you'll just be subject to their biases. There was then the question of, why exactly are you trying to outlaw sexy stuff? Because the more you outlaw the tame sexy stuff, the more people find the niche sexy stuff that they can do. Whom is benefiting from that? The answer is the company, their image. They like to be... It is, generally speaking, better to advertisers if you don't host sexy stuff of any kind on your platform. But also, every time that they try to, like, ban sexy stuff... Oh, right, yes, we don't have the blindfold here, so I'm just going to give myself the blindness. I'm going to have to literally blind myself for this test. Yeah, like, pretty much every time they try to ban sexy stuff on Twitch, for instance, as one specific potential theoretical idea, because of course Twitch is perfect and has no flaws, it vastly disproportionately affects women. Strange that. It's almost as though it's almost as though the content is being viewed through a heterosexual male lens. So men can't be sexy, so they won't be affected by the sexy ban. Weird that. Hope it won't go super poorly as the 2019 Tumblr not safe for work ban. Oh, that was glorious. The devaluation after buying Tumblr is glorious. Anyways. With that, I'm gonna go blind now. Okay, so here I am. Let me just bring that down, bring this up. So we can always see the block that we're standing on, and we can always see the block that we're looking at, but everything else fades out after 15 seconds of not looking at it. So there is a tile entity, but command blocks don't actually use a tile entity renderer. And because I'm just blind, I also cannot see the husk that's around somewhere. So yeah, we can see those just fine. Very good. The bed should be over this direction. Oh, found tile entity to render. Bed. There we go. Okay, good. That's a good sign. That means the renderer exists and we've managed to find it. I believe there's a potion. I think there's a brewing stand over here somewhere. Yeah, this is sort of, by design, the kind of stuff you have to deal with. So it should be near the portal? I could have sworn it was near the portal. Okay, well, let's just head over to the bed again. This is kind of what you have to deal with when you're blind, according to my system. Wait, did I find it? Ah, there it is. Okay. Just put a brewing stand here. So, yeah, brewing stands use an actual block model. As we all know, it's important that the entire world structure around the idea that badly behaving cis men aren't provoked. You're not wrong, and I hate it. Okay, so there's an example of another tile entity that actually does have a renderer, and same with the bed, and not the brewing stand, though. So, our goal, by the end of this experimentation, is to have all three of these blocks be visible at all times. Well, not all times, but enough times. Okay. Imagine being the human hired to vet whether a stream about farts is too sexual somehow. I haven't watched a lying stream in 5 to 6 years? Wow! Welcome back, Muffin. Good to see you're still just out here doing your thing. Good to know. Yeah, I hope you're doing okay, Muffin. Hope you've had a nice 5-6 years. I know they've been rough, but still. Especially the last, like, 18 months. Okay. So we have the tile renderer. Can we do something as simple as just telling it to render. So we want the partial ticks, which we have. We want the matrix stack, which we do. We should have a buffer through here somewhere, I think. I think we've got a buffer somewhere. Could have sworn we did. Ah, it's the vertex. There we go. Combined lights. In this case, it's gonna be about 7. And combined overlay. Gonna presume we just go 0 there. Okay. And we'll be back. Oh, there's a problem here. What is the problem? Does that literally just get... That gets a Thailand, but apparently Thailandese can't be untyped. Interesting. Well, we're gonna have to fix this off and continue this on after my break then, so I will catch you all in about 10 minutes. Go grab yourselves a drink, go grab yourselves a snack, take your meds, stretch your legs, that kind of thing. Fix that posture. I know you've been shrimping. Yes, you. Right there. Yes, you. And, we're back in 10 minutes. See you then. welcome back everybody. Hope you had a nice little break there. So, before we left off there, we were trying to get a handle on rendering tile entities as part of blind vision. Paradox in terms, I'm sure. If you're curious why exactly I'm going to all this difficulty, when you can't see anything, the game is unplayable. So, being able to just, like, dispense a blindfold to somebody would basically make it impossible for them to play the game at all. Conversely, the blindness effect in vanilla Minecraft isn't actually that bad. It isn't remotely representative of actually being blind. You can literally still see people standing directly in front of you, out for a few blocks, in fact. So, I didn't like the blindness effect of vanilla Minecraft, but I also wanted to make sure you could still play the game if, for instance, you play as an ooze who are blind by default. So, I opted for this solution, which is a bit more representative of still being able to know what's around you, but having to actually, like, move around and use your hands and such to, like, identify what it is, that sort of thing. Hence, the separate rendering of blocks we've interacted with, and all sorts. Glowing creatures still are actually able to be seen, because it gives me a handy thing for hooking in blind sight and such, but also, you can see them through walls when a creature is glowing, so it doesn't make too much sense that things like a blindfold would prevent you, for whatever reason. It's not like the light has to travel a certain distance through the terrain before you, like, or before it can suddenly be stopped by, like, a blindfold. So that just made sense. Anyways, our current problem is that we can't see what... We can't type it, as near as I can tell. What does it take? Capture of something, not applicable for the arguments, tile entity, float, major stack, vertex. Doesn't need it needs a render type buffer specifically. Okay, right. Yeah, personally, I think it's, like, considerably more, I personally find it to be a bit more immersive, I guess would be the phrase, which is a weird thing to think of in a world made of cubes. Because it, like, moving your cursor around and having that actually have a consequence beyond where you're aiming is, like, it feels like you're waving your hand around over things to, like, figure out what they are, that kind of thing. So, yeah. Is Rowlet one of the few Pokemon that doesn't actually say its own name? I can't remember. Does it say Hoot? People who know more about post-Gen 1 Pokemon, tell me. Okay. So, Vertex needs to be replaced with a buffer. A render type buffer, to be exact. Right. Which looks like the Vertex, but is clearly not. So somewhere in here there is a different function. Let's try seeing where that gets called, presumably in the renders dispatcher. Yep. Okay. So that just gives it... That literally just gives it a overlay. Okay. The buffer, though, where does that come from? Let's trace this thing and see if we can find out where it calls it. Okay. We're going on a detective mission here. Okay, that's a variable. That's not an input. That's a good progress. So, where does that value come from? Render type buffer 1, right there. Oh boy. Render type textures.get buffer source. Would flying happen to be in the chat? Flying's much better at graphics coding than I am, and this looks like I might heck it up. So it finishes all of those, which I'm assuming is significant. Not 100% certain what it's sorting for. But we can at least get that part. So it is render type buffer. Okay. That part, fine. What was it calling with the... Yeah, let's just grab that as the overlay. That's one thing, at least. Okay, that's what you need. Or some kind of it, at least. What is it specifically? Render type buffer. It's an interface. Okay. What is your problem now? Tile entity, float, matrix stack, render type buffer, int. Okay. This is weird. Can we cast it, maybe? By the type? Not sure. Okay, you're a little in the way, Rowlet. 1 second. Ah, lordy. Okay. Presumably this retrieves the tile entity render, so tile entity render E from the tile entity. Right. Might as well just writing a separate function for this at this point. Let's see. E of tile entity. Okay, yeah, it probably is worth writing a separate function for this actually, just so that we know what's going in. So render tile E tile entity, or just call it tile I guess for right now. And then we're going to need the block position. Actually, no. No, I don't think we will. Or at least not for right now. It might, we once we get anything rendering, then we'll figure out if we need that. I made the syntax, yeah. Okay. Okay, there. Problem solved. Now it's typed. Although we still don't have the buffer. So let's see. Renderer, yep, fine. Render type. Wonder if that would be... No, we still need to give it the render type buffer. Okay, so where does that come from then? Oh, that comes from the world renderer. As near as I can tell, anyways. Yeah, world renderer render type textures buffer source. It is private, though, so we can't access it normally. And there's no getter, so we can't access it. Ooh. Okay then. We have that, does that have access to the value we need? Does not seem like it. We have the matrix stack, we have partial text, we have the window with the element type. We do not have access to the textures. But there must logically be some means by which we can actually render a tile entity. That just seems straight up, like straightforward. Wait, hang on, is that the right thing? Even? Render world, there we go. Yes it is. Does the world renderer maybe have a buffer that we can use? Something. We need some kind of access to that. Quite why that's called rain time buffers in, I don't know, but Is there an instance in here maybe we could use? We can get a buffer from the render type buffers, but we don't have access to the instance, at least not the one that the world is actually using to render. I don't 100% know if that's going to be a problem. Let's see what we can grab. Combined light, packed light map. Banding box, nope. Okay. We can get the renderer, we can call it to render something, but we can't access the render type buffer. So, if there's no obvious way to do it in code, at least in the code that you have, next step, essentially steal. Find somebody else who's done it. Do not, steal people's code, by the way, but you can use it as reference to figure out something that is utterly stumping you. Frequently in code, there is, one way, or one good way, to do something, so if somebody else has done it first, you might as well reference them. So now I have to try and think of a situation, or at least some kind of mod that has ideally got its source code visible, that can render a tile entity that isn't there. Does Botania still do its, hollow? It's like hologram effects for the Gaia Guardian arena. Botania's done basically everything at one point or another, so I'll just check. Okay. Render. World? Nope. Skyblock? Nope. That's for rendering all of the tile entities. Entity? Another question is there anything in Minecraft that renders a tile entity that isn't there? And the answer is not really. I'm trying to think where this code would be. I guess we can event handler, but am I correct? Does Botania still have the holographic layout of the Gaia Guardian view of the arena? Am I remembering that correctly, or does that not exist anymore? Did that exist in the first place, I guess is the next question. Okay, tile, entity, render, dispatcher. Renderer, isn't it? Structure guide, yes, exactly. Render tile brewery, spark changer, pool, teller plates, prism, pump, I do not seem... I don't see it here. They still have that. I don't know if it's folded into patchouli. Oh, there's a point, yeah. Yeah, all I'm seeing here is just the tile entity renderers. Okay, get renderer? Tile entity renderer, bleh. Up there, bleh. Okay. Item stack tile entity renderer. Where do you get the buffers from then? Like, there's what we're after right there. Referenced in the render helper. Okay. Referenced also in the render helper. Tiara, cosmetic baubles. Where do you get the buffers from, damn it? Somewhere there must be a function that is actually able to show me where it gets these dang things from. A lot more mods have Botania-style structure guides now. As a player, it's really nice. Yeah, it's very convenient, definitely. So we just part of the do render. Ey, that's not helpful. Okay. Like, there's a bunch of places here where that's called. Actually, we have it in settlement renderer. How do we get it here? I'm gonna quietly die now. Just very quietly. Because apparently there was a solution to this in my own code. I did say I'm terrible at graphics code, didn't I? I mentioned that at the top of the hour, I'm pretty sure. Okay. Let's try and see if that will give us visible tile entities. Also, in my own defense, that was like pulling teeth. We just spent half an hour, pretty much, pulling teeth trying to find buffers. So, can we see the chest tonight? And ideally also the bed. Hey, we can see the chest and we can see the bed. Nice. Okay. It's wibbly as heck, but that's fine. We knew it would be. We've already come to terms with that. I don't know what's quite going on with this lighting, but we can see it, and that's what's important. Love how they bounce. Yeah, that's technically a bug, and it's one that also happens with the settlement rendering, but it's fine. Let's see, if we just set that to 15, I wonder if that'll fix up the chest looks like, because they should all be the same. Can we see a double chest? Good question. Let's find out. I presume so. I'm fairly certain what happens with a double chest is there's like one of them that has priority on the rendering and it just renders the whole double chest. and the other one's effectively just invisible. Not 100%, but we'll see. It's an endearing bug, yeah. It works for the effect, which is that these aren't things that are actually solid, these are your recollections of the blocks that were there. I don't know. Still a dark chest. That is weird. Not 100% certain what's happening there then. But double chests. Double chests are apparently fine. And yeah, there's the weirdness that happens. Just sort of something we have to deal with there. This, I'm not 100% certain how to fix. Because we should be able to see that in top of, in front of that, but... But hooray! This works. Or at least it works well enough that we can see the bed. Grand. Behold, the forbidden inner workings of what we think a chest looks like. I will say, for purposes of compatibility, the blind ability does also give you constant blindness. I would prefer not to, but a lot of different places use the blindness effect as being a shorthand for being blind and therefore not subject to vision-based effects. Which is a pain in the neck, because there's a couple of unavoidable parts to the blindness status effect. The first and most, obvious, I guess, is you can't sprint whilst you're blind. If you have the blindness status effect, you drop out of sprint, you can't run. Which is weird, because you can see more with it than you can with my blind effect. The second, slightly more subtle thing is you cannot deal critical hits. Which I guess you can't be precise, but that just because you're not doing it intentionally does not mean that you can't deal someone a grievous blow. Just, it would be a heck of a challenge mode for a pro gamer. I know there is at least one person doing ooze mode as a as an actual challenge. Which, hey, fair game, go for it. And yes, that is very much a big DPS loss. And just the capacity that you can't run. Nothing is stopping you from running except that you don't know what's in front of you. Blind people are still perfectly capable of being long-distance runners. They just have to know there's nothing in front of them. Because then they'll run into stuff and get hurt. It's the weirdest of choices. I can kind of understand why they maybe made them, but the implications of the debuffs don't match up with the actual visual implementation of the blindness, in my mind, at least. So it's just bleh. You're trying to do it? You're trying to do a news run? Hell yeah. You might have been one of the people actually that reported the is glowing bug that we have been fixing here. But okay. There's still some rendering oddities, I guess, to how this runs, but I think that worked. Should we maybe we render the tile entities and then the blocks? I don't know. Not a lot I can do to fix that. Right. Let's tick that off our list. Okay. There was another bug with the poison ability. I don't think I mentioned this, that I'm still not 100% certain how it's happening and if it's my fault that it's happening. Which is occasionally... Okay, one of two things happens. Either the effect doesn't work, which is it's a random effect, so that's not terribly surprising. Or it affects both the victim and the attacker, which obviously isn't meant to happen. But there's literally no reference to the attacker here. So I don't know exactly how that could possibly be happening. Doesn't make any sense, unless the attacker somehow attacks themselves. I guess I can add a check here for, is the attacker, are the victim and the attacker different? If it still happens after that point, then I have no idea what's going on. We can also theoretically check if it's... it might be the RNG, come to think of it, that might be having some effect on it somehow not working occasionally. But, it's a relatively low concern one, that. Otherwise, I think that's about it. I think that's all of the major bugs that have been reported, at the very least. So yeah, we got that. Grand. That is a problem, right there. What that basically means is that stuff like Dazed, with the burbs going around your head, if you load in, if a creature is loaded after that has been applied, then it doesn't show up. So let's actually just go see the burbs, come to think of it. I don't think I've shown off the Dazed effect for a bit, and it's been causing a bunch of trouble, so people might as well find out why their games have been randomly crashing. Trust me when I say it's worth it. It's worth it to have a potion effect that doesn't just have swirlies on it. That's one thing, like, one of the bigger gripes, I guess. Like, at some point in Minecraft, they were planning on having more magic. But it ended up just being two different kinds of particle effect. Credit to modded Minecrafters for making it much more diverse, but in the process a lot more noisy visually. I feel like we may have gone overboard. We overcorrected. Okay. Yeah, that's today's me. The original plan for potion brewing was wild. Yeah, it's why we had the cauldron that still to this day does almost heckle. Very strange. But there we go. That is the effect when a creature is dazed, or it's what you see when a creature is dazed. And whilst you are dazed, you can't take most actions. It's very similar to the sort of like petrifying, I can't recall its exact name, gaze from Maho Tsukai in terms of actual effect. Let me just... So I'm currently dazed, I can't move, I can't break blocks or place blocks of any kind, but I can still look around. It's very distinct from being paralyzed and being petrified. And it has the same effect on mobs as well. It's just very... I like the visuals of it, because you can actually see what's going on. How long did I put it on for over here? 600 seconds, so he's got that for 10 minutes. He ran into a wall really quickly. Yeah, I originally tried to do this using a moving texture. So I just move... If you don't know, when you try to render something out of the boundaries of its texture, it just repeats the texture. So I just had the texture be constantly moving like one direction so that the birds moved across, but it ended up being a bit wonky. So I changed it, and it's now an actual, like, I don't even remember how many planes that just like on a single model renderer that's just rotating. Which looks a lot... It looks a lot cleaner to me. I like that. But anyways, yeah, the problem we have is if I log out and log back in, he'll still have the effect, but he'll probably be missing the actual visual of it. Case in point. So data, get entity, that one. Yeah, still has the dazed effect right there. That is the only one. And because he has it, and it hasn't gone away, reapplying the dazed effect won't make it visible. because it's still there, it's just had its timer changed. So, we need to add that to the data of the logging in player, as it were, or whenever an entity is added to the world, to make sure all of the players know what your visual potion effects are. Fortunately, that is stored entirely in 1 byte. A byte is, I think it's 8 bits. I think. Not 100%. Don't quote me on that. It's been many years since I was studying this stuff. But basically, it's a number. And we can use the individual bits of that to say if a given visual potion effect is active, which is how we detect that dazed is active. And later on, it also means we can add in other things like petrified or entangled and a whole host of other things that have special custom visual effects rather than just swirlies. Makes it look much nicer. But anyways, we are going to need to synchronize this whenever a creature enters the world, and especially whenever a player logs in. Which is... So let's start just by having a getter for that. Tweet, 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 tweet. Yeah, I could... There's a thought. I could add a tweety sound effect to it, I guess. There's an idea. But okay. So I need to take this value from more or less every entity and tell any player that's logging in what it is. Dazed isn't meant to last very long, by the way. It's lasting 10 minutes on the husks just for testing purposes, but it's meant to last like 6 seconds tops. Petrification, or the paralysis effect and such, are meant to be fairly temporary. They're not meant to, like, the actual, like, Lich in D&D 3.5 has an ability that's called Paralyzing Touch that will paralyze you permanently until you get, like, magical aid and such. And that's cool as a lore thing, but it really, really, really sucks to play against. It's like, oh, they made a touch attack one of the easiest melee attacks to land, and now you can't move ever. You're just out of the fights perpetually. It sucks. And you might say, oh, well, don't get into melee range of a Lich then, except that Liches are powerful spellcasters and ranged is where that's good. They're usually quite squishy, that's why you get into melee range with them. But... I don't know that I've ever actually seen a DM have Paralyzing Touch just straight destroy somebody like that. I remember, I think it's Mind Flayers, or Illithits, depending on who you ask, essentially. They had a spell-like ability once a day of Plane Shift, meaning they touch a target, or themselves, and they are sent to another dimension. There was nothing at the time stopping that ability from being used on anyone but them, so they were free to use it as like a last minute like heck you on like an attacking party member. Just aim for whichever party member is doing like it looks like the absolute powerhouse or the most important, I guess, and just bloop, you are now separated from the party on like the 14th plane of the abyss or something. Like, well, what you gonna do now, adventurers? You need me to get them back. It's like, well, I'm the only one that knows where they've gone. What you gonna do? It's a power move, I guess. It's a bit of a bargain, but buys you extra time to survive, and Mind Flayers are nothing if not intelligent. I am out of tea. Oh dear. Okay. It's gonna be a lot of packets, I think. Or we could when a creature is loaded client side, we could ping the server for their visual potions. There's a thought. But I think they'll only be loaded client side if they're loaded server side. We might need players can log in after things are loaded. So if that was the case, we would need a ping from the player to all nearby mobs, or all loaded mobs, which could be a lot of mobs. How do we sync this? I'm not dreadfully certain. We could just have the entities periodically tell all players in their vicinity, like, what's going on with their, like, visual potions, which would add a bit of noise, but would solve the potential problem of, like, logging in after they're loaded. Which in most circumstances we do, by the way. The world doesn't. When you load into a single player world, the world is loaded before you land. What is the most streamlined way of doing this? I think what we could do is inside of here, add a check for if we're client side, and if that and some arbitrary amount of time, we could ping the server for an updated version of what our visual potions are. I think. So have like an internal sync timer. That's probably the most reliable way to go, I think. That's about that's the cleanest approach I can think of, at the very least. So just set that to a minute. This function will get called pretty much every tick as it tries to render through the dazed renderer, so it should be fine. Oh wait, actually, I probably want to put the ticking down outside of here, because then multiple calls in the same frame will accelerate that. Okay, so we're gonna put that on to tick then. Where's tick? There is tick. Okay. Do I have an early return up here? I do not. Okay, good. Ping server for visual potion value. world and a value? I do. Okay. That's gonna require a packet. And I think this one is only handled by the server. Yeah, there it is. Or rather, it's only handled by the client. So we can change this around though to be bidirectional. In which case, then sending it from the server, from the client to the server serves as a ping, in essence. So message dot. What is this boolean used for? Value. Oh, it's what it's set to. Right. Yeah, set visual version to that. Okay, no, we probably need an actual separate thing then. But let's clone that for the time being. Okay. Where is set visual potions here? Is everyone still alive? Have I killed you? Have I killed you by muttering back and forth to myself? Apologies if so. Bite. Okay, that should be good. So now we just need the server to set the value from the entity. But we don't. I just need to get the context. Or we're going to need to get, like, the entity itself, and that's a little trickier. Do I have anything here that, like, does a thing? Apparently I do. That's good to know. Okay. Wait. Trying to remember exactly how this is going to serve. Because this will be pinged from every entity to the server, but only if it's client side. And I have to word this very carefully, or else it will just crash the server on load. Ooh. Ooh, that's irritating. Ah, okay. Alternatively, we just have the server ping nearby players every so often using the same sync timer, but that still presents a problem potentially of, like, if you're stood next to a mob farm, every single mob going through that farm is going to be periodically pinging every player nearby to say, hey, here's, like, the status of my visual potions, even if they don't have any. Oh. God, this is tricky. What is the most efficient way of doing this? I mean, like logically, the easiest way to do it would be when we're sending the data of the entity to the player. Like, if somebody changes the NBT data of, say, a goblin to give it a big nose, everyone knows that that goblin has a big nose. Like, that data is just there, and that's the kind of thing that we need to know. That's basically what we need to tag on to. But I don't think there's an event for that, and I'm not sure there's, like... Okay, I might have an idea here. So there is an event when an entity is added to the world, and it should be triggered whenever a player logs in, as well as when an entity is loaded. From there, since we know it works when it is added, like, fresh to the entity, and when it stops. Our problem is when it's like in between that. Is it entity join world event? Fire when entity joins the world. Should happen also client side, I think. So if we add public static void on entity load. If event.world.isRemote. So we theoretically just need to have this ping happen whenever it loads client side. So let's see if that does anything. If it does, then what we'll see is a number of pings like that whenever we boot in. That is the least amount of traffic that I can think of. We'll see if it actually works. Fingers crossed. Maybe I just need more tea. Is that why I'm, like, heavily thinking things through? I don't know. I don't usually put this much brain power into things, or at least it doesn't feel like I usually put this much brain power into things. Okay, wolves loaded. Okay, loaded witch, villager, husk, cow, and villager on client side. Good. Now you shouldn't have a problem with this because your potion effects are synchronized with you so that you know what you have, but every other entity in the world, you just know the aggregate color of them. That's all you need to know under most circumstances. So, okay. Oh lordy. I'll be back in about 10 minutes to continue frying my own brain. Do that. Alright, welcome back everybody to the final hour of our evening tonight, and we're currently working to try and get visual potion effects to actually be, like, consistent, synchronized, that kind of thing. Which is harder than it might sound because we're not synchronizing conventional potion effects, so yeah, we're trying to send more data to the player than the player actually usually gets. And I think this packet is set to work, so if this message is received by the server, it retrieves whatever player sent it, and it then tries to find the entity with that particular UUID, be it another player or any entity. Then, if we find that, we try to set the visual potion value of the message with that entity, and then we send it back to the player to then do this whole chunk of code where it finds the same entity and sets the visual potion value. So that should be all that is necessary, and that should also, most importantly, actually work on both sides. We hope. There's no telling, really, but So let's go back over to VOBus client and ping the server. Packet handler dot send to server new packet sync visual potions event dot get entity dot unique ID. That should be the only value it needs. Yep. We've already checked. We know that this does get loaded. This does get called client side. So here we go. How many people have I got still here after like my last hour of rambling and such? If it works, then the husk in our test world should have the days to should have the Tweety birds, if this has worked properly. Or it might crash immediately. We never know. It's Minecraft. It does that. Frequently, completely nonsensically. Hey! Such a simple thing. Getting Tweety birds to work. But okay. I should have a clear over here. Yep. So, bloop. Gone. And there. Gone. There. Gone. There. Okay. Let me also grab this. Put that there for about 10 seconds. Blip. Helps if I... Blip. Will it go away in its own? Yay! Okay. Visual potion effects should now be perfectly fine. We haven't technically fixed the problem where they just don't... I guess it's the living data doesn't exist or something. Before it tries to render it, so there isn't the living data to actually check, but... That should be good. That should be good. Let's see that again. Hey. Nice. So there is nothing that actually deals the dazed effect right now, but there's a number of effects that can deal that later on in the future, and Various Oddities is of course the foundational mod for all of the rest of the Various families, so having the effect here means the entire family can use it. It includes things from Various equipment, for instance. So, there is one last bug for our evening here, which is... If we go to Various Equipment... I suppose you have a fan point out, but it adds a weird level of emotion to see my hair flitting around as I'm flying the game. Yeah, I have a little fan underneath my desk that's just keeping me cool, because it's not as hot here as it is in the US, as I understand it, but it is mildly toasty. So, yeah. Worth being careful. Okay. So, the last thing is I implemented a rabbit tail, which we can see right here, but you will note no appearance of rabbit ears. So we actually are missing a crucial piece of cosplay, as it were. we are missing a rabbit ears. Surprisingly, nobody pointed that out to me. Yes, we forgot the rabbit ears. So, we need to add those. We have all manner of horns: deer, ram, hartebeest, kirin, storm sage, wolf, cat, axolotl, and even different kinds of antennae. But we do not have rabbit ears. So we need to fix that up. Let's see, model, color, yes, it's fine, but we need texture. Can I just use the one from that, I wonder? Probably, come to think of it. Just need to put it in the right place. So cats and wolf ears all share an actual, share a texture file. Just save space, or anything else. So model, ears, rabbit. Okay. Rabbit model. Let's see where the ears are. They're not... Oh, they are listed here. Okay. Is that because they're animated, or is that because they're not parented? It's because they're not parented. Okay. Let's just boot the client here and do a little bit of field study to see how these ears behave. There's not even multiple boxes in here. Every single renderer is one box. One cube. Oh lordy. Even the nose isn't parented. Oh, Minecraft. Come on, you should know better than this by now. But finding out how deeply messed up so many of the models are. I know, right? Hello, friend. Hello, other friend. Additional friend. Okay. Summon. Rabbits there. No. AI. So it sits still. Okay. So, that's how the ears need to sit. They don't have an idle animation of any kind, by the looks of it. This rabbit is effectively a statue. Yep. There's no animation to them. As near as I can tell, looks like the ears do split when they look up and down, but that might just be an artifact of their... That might just be an artifact of how they're actually, like, not parented. But dear God, why at least is the tail not even parented? The tail doesn't seem to have any problem. It's just staying exactly where it is. Why is that not parented? Yeah, okay, so the ears split according to the up and down the pitch of the head. Okay. Small children, kindly look away, because I don't want this guy just roaming around of his own, because he won't despawn. If they move, the predators can see them. Evolutionary adaptation. Okay. So that's like... Okay. So we'll... In order to have them go in opposite directions, and indeed also move separate to the head, we're going to need to have them move... We're going to need them as separate model renderers. Just drag this over here so I can see it. Okay, so ear, left equals, small utils, fresh renderer. This. Just clone that in for the moment so I can reference it specifically. Okay. 58-0, that will not be the final thing, but it's what we've got for now at least. That will also most likely not be the final values of what this ear looks like. And oh, there's a very odd rotation point. Maybe it would take me a second here. Okay, get rid of the parts we don't need. So let's see. 0.5, -9, and 1. And its size is 2 and 5 by 1. So, yep, we're going to need to move this around a bit. Oh, that's probably in part because of its rotation point. Which is way down there, which is not where we want it to be, really. It's probably more like that is where we want it to be, at a guess. And let's find the texture that we're using here. So let's see, ears, where are you? Here's Wolf, there we go. Going to want to modify this texture first because we'll end up with just invisible ears, and that obviously will not suit what we're looking for. So let's see, these want to start at 0.6. I think they have... Nope, they do have different places here, okay. So we're going to want to have them next to each other. Okay, so how is that offset? That looks like it's correct. I don't... They need to be further set towards the back, so we can do that by just changing the Z here. And what is the default angle? Just so we can compare. See, this with the Y angle. It's really relative to the nose. But the nose is the exact thing as the head. Okay, and that's radians, so let's find out what that is in degrees. About 15. So that's what it typically looks like, is what we're currently seeing. Is that centered? Feels like that's not centered to me. Do we think that's centered? I think this needs to be further out. Maybe like 2.5. That looks more correct to me. There's all manner of weirdness when it comes to mobile alignments and such. But... okay, I think that's good. Okay. So let's see, that's actually located at 0 and 6. Whereas that's located at 6 and 6. Okay, set their rotation points. -0, -4, 0. For you. Is this actually mirrored? Out of curiosity, is the left ear mirrored? Because usually the left side is mirrored. Yeah, it's mirrored even though it uses a different texture. That's weird. I don't know why you do that, but... Okay, and the rotation point of the right ear. 0. -4, 0. And everything else looks good. We just want to set its rotation to -15. Right. That should be the size of that in the texture. There. Okay. Now we just need to register the entity, or the item, rather. And add them here, so that we actually can put them into our slot. Okay. So, refresh the resources, assuming I've overwritten them. Yeah, good. Won't be the final textures, just what we got right now. And run data so that we actually know that we can, in fact, wear those in the right slots. They won't have proper textures and they won't be animated yet, but... Okay, done there. Reboot that just in case. Run the client, and now we should have a pair of rabbit ears. Hopefully. So I'll attend to the Goblin Refractory, and then we should have a new alpha version probably of various oddities out probably tomorrow. Fixing those bugs that crash the Home server and such. It is an alpha version, in fairness. Alpha versions are kind of expected to be a bit buggy, but nonetheless, it's no fun for people if their worlds are just crashing over and over. I didn't tell it to use the rabbit model, because we just created it, did I? Yep. There we go. Good start. Good start line. Well done. I decided getting more tea at 11 o'clock at night was maybe not the smart idea, so water. Okay, there they are, that's a start. They're a bit further apart, but in fairness, so is the rest of our head. I have 2 pixels between my eyes, he has 1. So, that's fine. Okay, animation. So we have Nethead, you're in here, so we go up to here. Rotate angle Y equals the... Right, it's not parented, so it doesn't realize that part. So it is just always at its current location, then. Why isn't it parented? I don't understand. Ugh. Okay. But the X angle is... the pitch of the head... inverted? Is that what it's saying? No, that's into radiance. What? That's a weird thing there going on. But it's the only 2 lines where these are actually referenced, so it's just gotta be that, I guess. Wait, no, it's given the exact... it's given the exact same angle as the head. Which means that the reason that they split isn't because they're rotated, so much as they have a different rotation point. Hang on, let's hop in and actually like model this head, shall we? Just to see what the difference is. Where's head? There is head. Hop in, get it. Let's see, this is located 16 and -1. It is 5, 4, 5. Okay, so that's the rotation point of the rabbit's head. Right there. It's at the back, right where the neck is, which is a reasonable place to put it, I would say. Oh wait, no, wrong thing. Nope, actually no right thing. -9 and 1. No, -1. Okay. If that has the same rotation points. Rotation points are not altered here. Okay. Those are all rendered together. Yeah, this is a fairly convoluted bunny, partially because they're not parenting anything. The rotation points are identical. They're all the same. So they should all... So how is the ear splitting? We observed the ears getting further apart. Yes, I'm not imagining this. Please someone tell me if I'm going insane. What's the nose's angle? Same exactly as the head. Okay. This is fascinating. We have something that doesn't appear to exist in the code. At all. Right, well... what strangeness is this? Okay, so... this dot ear left dot rotate angle x equals head pitch... or actually, this dot biped head? Can I get that? Head? No, apparently not. How bizarre. We know it's related to the pitch. That part we're certain of. There's no modification of the rotation points, yet they're identical. They ostensibly have the exact same angle, and yet also... I wonder if it's a result of the rotation. Come to think of it, that might be it. Yeah, there we go. Okay, yes. It's because they're rotated on the Y. So they're not rotating backwards, they're rotating outwards. Because their rotation points are tweaked. That's why they split. Aha. Now we know. Hooray! This model is stupid. Anyways, I'm pretty sure pi over 180 is to radians. So, that should fix that. We've cracked the code? No, that's what I do most nights. Better than original horse? Anything's better than original horse, but in fairness, the only reason that the rabbit model here is better than the old horse model is that there's fewer cubes. The original horse model had something like 26 different model renderers to, like, position every frame. Okay, I think the next thing we want to do probably is actually, like, limit what that is. But they do what we want them to do. Just zoom in a little bit so you guys can see a bit better. So we can clamp the range. Okay. Is it Math Helper, I think, has a clamp function? Yeah, they were. So, clamp head pitch to, let's say, negative 15 or so. Let's say negative 45. And positive, also 45. I'm glad I wasn't seeing things. But that's part of why you parent, is because it makes things much more readable. if you're going to be applying the exact same rotations to things, and they have the exact same rotation points, just parent them. Just make sure you don't lock the player head. Oh, no, that's fine. I don't even have access to that here. Okay, so that's negative 45. And that's positive 45. So we probably want to be maybe half of that. Maybe a third that forwards. That shouldn't update while I'm in here. That's really weird to see, I have to say. Quite strange. I actually think that that looks actually kind of fine at 45. I think that's the positive one, I'm not sure. Nope, it is the negative. Okay. So negative 45 was fine. When positive maybe 15. Good for alien antennae. We also have an antennae, but yes, or an antenna. Like, the ant antenna is a thing that exists here. In 3 different forms, in fact. Okay, so that's how far back it'll go, and that's how forwards it'll go. Such a weird phenomenon. I wonder if that's even intentional. I wonder if that's just an artifact of the ears not being parented, honestly. Like, was that actually a thing that they intended to happen? Who knows? Actually, we might want to reduce how far back they can go to, like, there, maybe. The reason they're doing it that way is because their rotation point is offset from where they actually are, so... Happy little accident. I don't know if that's necessarily a happy accident, but it's certainly an accident, that's for sure. Yeah, let's change that to like 25 then. But it was cute, so they kept it? Maybe. Like, the only reason that happens is because nothing in the rabbit model is parented. That might mean that they just didn't realize it would happen like that. But I don't know what the actual process is inside of Mojang for modeling creatures, so... Okay. So now they just need a proper texture. Don't need Techniope anymore. That one, and this one. So let's see. I think That's the ears right there. Wait, they're 2 pixels? No, they're just 1. Okay. I was worried they were scaling textures on me. Desaturate. That should be good, but let's bring the contrast up a bit. I almost want to invert it, just so that you know reliably the majority of it's going to look the way you think it will. Okay, that should work. So that should be proper default color and proper texture. This should be good. This should be basically done. It just needs like a name, an item icon, and that kind of thing. But that will take more time than I have left tonight. Phew. Productive evening, even if it was mostly just making things do what they're supposed to do. And not the things that they're not supposed to do. So I don't know how long before this. I don't know how long till like rabbit ears are available exactly, but New Various Oddities Alpha should be tomorrow, probably. We will see. Let's see. Okay, apparently some... Oh, hey, they are brighter on the inside. That's interesting. Unfortunately, tinting and brightness are a little weird in terms of many things. It feels like we've got them on the opposite sides. That's interesting. So that's now as far back as they go, and that's as far forwards as they go. Obviously I need to fix the texture slightly. But I think that's good. I could also add a little bit of wiggle there if I wanted them to be a little more animated. So... that is weird. Okay, I know why that's doing that. And the answer is because left ears are mirrored. Despite the fact that they're mirrored in the model over here. I think they are. Are they? Yeah, mirrored. Oh, they're also mirrored on the tail? Oh, both it... Every part of the rabbit is mirrored. Why is every part of the rabbit mirrored? What? Wait. Okay, to give you an idea of what's going on here, every single piece of this texture, essentially, is mirrored, meaning the front is the back is the front, that kind of thing. So why not just make the texture the other way, Mojang? So it's not that the left ear shouldn't be mirrored, it's that the right ear needs to be also. What? That is bizarre. Okay. Well, at least I know that problem's fixed now. Wait. That is bizarre. That makes no sense at all. And yet... Dear Lord. I have no explanation and I must scream. That's just... That suggests to me that somebody made the texture map. Like, they made the texture before they'd finished the model? and then the model no longer properly related to exactly where things were on the... But then why would you need to mirror the head? The head doesn't... God, that's weird. That's bizarre. Why is that a thing? That makes no sense. Like, there's a default value in mirror. It's just false. That's just what you could have left it to. You just would have had to fix your texture. Made no sense. Oh well. There we go. Ears. The weird had to be somewhere, I guess. I might want to mirror it there. Do I want to just invert it? I wonder. Will that do the trick? I can invert it here without having to reboot at least, so... Just gotta change the levels again so it fits. So the texture for cat ears, wolf ears, and rabbit ears is actually the same thing for all the... Basically, it's just shared. So it just saves me an extra couple of textures, really. I feel like the contrast needs to be up there. Wait, nope, not across everything. Just these. Don't want to change everything. So cute that you got the bunny ears to move. Apparently the same way that they got it to move, which is by sheer accident. Yeah, as I say, it's a little difficult to actually get the proper, almost, bitone, like, effect there, because the way the tinting process works is that the luminance of the, pixel defines how heavily it is colored. So, things all kind of end up graying together slightly, in a lot of cases. But, there we go. Full and complete rabbit costume. 100% dyeable, and can be worn either in your functional curio slots or in the dedicated cosmetic slots. Right. That's all I got for today. I hope everybody's enjoyed. My next stream should be Thursday, either Sea of Thieves, because I know a bunch of the Will of Madness crew are getting into that now, or Among Us, as ever. Then on Saturday, we should have some time with the patrons on the carousel, and we'll be back for more of this lark on Tuesday next week. Meanwhile, I do make videos at youtube.com/tremorcomic. It also features a bunch of VODs of things, so if you don't get to watch them here on Twitch, they get to watch them here on YouTube, I guess. Thinking I'm just in the future for a hot second there. And as ever, everything I do is powered by you over at patreon.com/lying. We've had a few new patrons recently. Love to have you, and hope to see you at the carousel and such. Otherwise, hope you've all enjoyed, and I will, as ever, catch you all next time. What noise does a rabbit make? Squeak, I guess. Squeak, squeak. Actually, no, I'm dressed as a kobold right now.